Have you ever asked yourself, will I work forever? Have you ever caught yourself looking at your retirement account balance, calculating how many decades of work you have left, and secretly thinking that you can just figure it all out in your 40s or 50s once you finally earn real money? Look, we tell ourselves this comforting lie all the time. You graduate, get your career off the ground, deal with soaring rent and student loans, and promise yourself that your 20s and 30s are meant for living, while your future, higher earning self will easily swoop in and do the heavy lifting later. Here is the thing that makes this assumption financially lethal. Compound interest does not care about how big your paycheck is when you are 50. It only cares about how much time your dollars had to multiply while you were young. There is a precise, irreplaceable 10-year window in every person's working life that mathematically dictates whether you will cross the finish line with complete financial autonomy or spend your golden years stressed out, counting pennies, and wondering where all your hard work went. According to Federal Reserve consumer finance surveys, the median retirement savings for Americans between ages 55 and 64 sits at roughly $185,000. Think about that number for a second. That is after 40 straight years in the workforce. In today's economic climate, withdrawing a safe 4% from a nest egg of that size generates barely $7,400 a year, or a little over $600 a month. That is not retirement. That is a prolonged financial emergency subsidized by state benefits and sheer anxiety. The brutal reality is that wealth accumulation is heavily front-loaded. If you get the critical 10-year window between age 25 and age 35 right, you can coast into multimillionaire status with shockingly little effort later on. But if you waste those 10 crucial years telling yourself you will make up for it tomorrow, you effectively sentence your future self to running on a steep financial treadmill where you have to save 4 to 5 times more of your hard-earned cash just to reach the exact same baseline outcome. To understand the sheer mechanics behind why this happens, let us look at two co-workers who start at the exact same company on the exact same day, earning the exact same salary. Let us call them Maya and David. Maya is 25 years old. She decides early on that she does not want to work until she is 70. She sets up an automated monthly transfer of $500 into a low-cost, broadly diversified index fund tracking the total market, which historically compounds at roughly 8% annually after accounting for dividend reinvestment. She keeps this up with ruthless consistency for exactly 10 years. By the time Maya turns 35, she has personally contributed $60,000 of her own money. At age 35, life happens. She has kids, buys a home, shifts careers, and decides to completely stop investing new money into that account. She does not put in another single dime for the next 30 years. She just lets her $60,000 foundation sit untouched in the market until she turns 65. Now look at David. David is also 25, but David has a different philosophy. David tells himself that $500 a month is too restrictive right now. He wants the nicer apartment downtown, the seasonal wardrobe upgrades, the weekend trips, and the newest tech gadgets. He says, look, my 20s and early 30s are for building memories. I will easily catch up once I am a senior director making 6 figures. David waits until he is 35 to finally start investing. But to make up for lost time, David commits to investing that same $500 every single month. Not just for 10 years, but for 30 straight years until he turns 65. David contributes his own money month after month, year after year, through his 30s, his 40s, and his 50s, putting in a total of $180,000 of his own cash out of pocket, which is 3 times what Maya contributed. Watch what happens when both of them walk into retirement at age 65. David, who invested $500 every month for 30 consecutive years and put in $180,000 of his own salary, finishes with roughly $745,000. That is a solid outcome, but he had to sacrifice his cash flow for 3 straight decades to build it. Maya, on the other hand, who only invested for 10 short years between age 25 and 35 and only put in $60,000 of her own money before stopping completely, walks away at age 65 with over $1,120,000. Let that soak into your brain for a second. Maya invested for a third of the time, contributed 1/3 of the money, stopped adding cash 3 decades earlier, and still walked away with nearly $400,000 more than David. Why did this happen? Because Maya's earliest dollars did all the heavy lifting. The dollars you invest in your 20s and early 30s are like young employees working overtime for 40 continuous years. Every single dollar Maya invested at age 25 turned into roughly $21 by the time she retired. Every dollar David invested at age 45 only had 20 years to grow, turning into barely $4. When you delay investing by just 10 years, you are not just missing out on 10 years of deposits. You are amputating the final, most explosive decade of compound interest, where exponential growth creates life-altering wealth out of thin air. The hidden tragedy is that our modern consumer culture is engineered specifically to sabotage you during this exact 10-year window. Between the ages of 25 and 35, you face the strongest psychological headwinds of your life. This is the decade where lifestyle creep bites the hardest. You finally start seeing your income rise from entry-level wages, but instead of wide moat savings, the pressure to look established takes over. You see your peers financing $60,000 SUVs on 84-month dealer loans. You see friends renting luxury high-rise apartments with rooftop pools they use twice a year. You feel this unspoken societal expectation that being an adult means upgrading everything you touch: your wardrobe, your dining habits, your furniture, your vacations. You end up trading the most valuable financial asset you will ever possess, which is uninterrupted compounding time, for temporary status symbols that depreciate into zero value the moment you swipe your card. The biggest trap during these 10 years is what behavioral economists call temporal discounting. Your brain is wired to value immediate comfort today far more than an abstract 60-year-old version of yourself living 40 years in the future. So when you have an extra $500 at the end of the month, your survival brain convinces you that buying the new jacket or leasing the sleek car brings immediate social utility, while putting that money into an index fund feels like throwing cash into a black hole. You have to rewire that instinct. You have to realize that every time you spend your early surplus on lifestyle inflation, you are essentially stealing freedom from your future self. So how do you actually win this critical 10-year window without living like a monk or eating instant noodles every night? It comes down to three clear, practical moves that tilt the math completely in your favor. The first move is establishing what I call the golden 20% automation rule. The moment a paycheck hits your direct deposit, 20% of your take-home pay must automatically be diverted into tax-advantaged accounts, like your employer 401k match, your Roth IRA, or your broad market index funds, before a single dollar touches your checking account for lifestyle spending. When you automate your investments first, you eliminate willpower from the equation. You adapt your lifestyle to live comfortably on the remaining 80%, completely bypassing the daily friction of deciding whether you can afford to invest. If you can only start with 10% today, start with 10%, but automate an annual step-up where you increase your contribution rate by 2% every single time you receive a raise or performance bonus until you hit that 20 to 25% threshold. The second move is maintaining a strict firewall between your income growth and your baseline living expenses. When your salary jumps from $60,000 to $85,000, resist the urge to immediately upgrade your apartment or finance a more expensive vehicle. Keep your core structural expenses, your rent, your car payment, and your basic utilities flat for just 3 to 4 years. By capping your fixed costs during your biggest income acceleration years, you widen the gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap is your investment engine. Diverting 50% of every new raise directly into income-producing assets during your prime compounding decade compresses 20 years of wealth building into a fraction of the time. The third move is staying ruthlessly focused on low-cost, broad-market index funds instead of chasing speculative financial noise. During your early wealth-building years, you will be constantly bombarded with hype, get-rich-quick courses, trendy individual stock picks, options trading schemes, and private investments promising overnight riches. Real wealth is built through boring, predictable execution. When you buy low-cost, total market index funds, you are owning fractional shares of the most productive, innovative companies on the planet. You let corporate earnings, global productivity, and dividend compounding do the work for you while you focus on expanding your primary earning power and living your daily life. What is at stake during these 10 years is not just a spreadsheet balance. It is your fundamental control over your own time. Financial freedom is the quiet confidence of knowing that you can walk away from a toxic boss, take a 6-month sabbatical, support aging parents, or pivot careers without checking if you can afford next month's mortgage payment. If you are currently in this 10-year window, realize the immense power you hold in your hands right now. Do not wait for the perfect time, do not wait for the massive promotion, and do not let lifestyle creep steal your most productive compounding years. And if you are already past this 10-year window, the lesson is not to despair. The lesson is to stop delaying for another single day. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is right now. Take a hard look at your bank accounts today. Set up that automated transfer, lock down your core investments, and make the deliberate choice to build a life where your money works tirelessly for you, rather than spending the rest of your days working tirelessly for it.